Hi, I'm Abel. In this video, I will explain what peer-reviewed research says, whether nurturing is female exclusive or a broader human capacity. So, people often say women are nurturing by nature and men are not, or something like men lack nurturing nature. But when you see researches from neuroscience, biology, psychology, and even anthropology, that claim is not well supported. The evidence points to something more accurate. Mothers and fathers may use somewhat different biological pathways, different entry points, but both have real biological capacity for nurturing. What oxytocin actually does? Oxytocin, its nickname is the bonding hormone, and it helps with uterine contractions during labor, milk letdown during breastfeeding, and also with social bonding, attachment, and caregiving behavior. So oxytocin has reproductive function, but it's not only about reproduction. It is also part of the broader human attachment system. So the key point here is childbirth-related oxytocin helps with birth and early bonding, but it does not determine who is more nurturing overall. Mothers have reproductive oxytocin surges that fathers do not have because fathers don't give birth, but that does not mean fathers are less nurturing. It means the path is different. Not that the nurturing capacity is absent. So just because fathers don't have birth-related oxytocin doesn't mean they are less nurturers. So mothers and fathers may arrive through different biological pathways, but both can develop strong nurturing capacity. Mothers have pregnancy, childbirth, and lactation-related hormonal changes. Fathers more often show oxytocin increase through interaction, like touching, playing, and caregiving involvement. So different paths, shared caregiving, and attachment system. So mothers and fathers both have oxytocin systems, but they are activated differently at the start. When they enter the caregiving system or when they enter the nurturing system, the entry point is activated differently. Mothers often have initial reproductive triggered oxytocin surge through pregnancy, childbirth, and lactation, while fathers' oxytocin increases through interaction with the baby, like touching, playing, kissing, e-contact. So mother's maternal surge is not permanent. This is a key point that you should underline. The oxytocin surge during childbirth is not permanent. After birth, oxytocin declines. When the woman gives birth, first it goes up, the oxytocin goes up and then declines. And after it declined, it is maintained in both parents through touch, e-contact, bonding, breastfeeding, and caregiving. So the difference is mainly in the starting pathway, while the broader caregiving system is shared. So within that shared system, what it means by within that shared system? Within that shared system means when the science says within that shared system, it is saying both mothers and fathers use the same underlying caregiving biology. And any differences happen inside that system, not outside of it. So same system, small variation inside it. Same system, small variation inside it. So what it means by different pathways? What is the science trying to say by saying different pathways, not different systems? These are different pathways, not different systems. So what the science is saying here is they may enter or activate caregiving differently. Example, for mothers, pregnancy, for fathers, interaction. But they are not using separate biological systems. What it means by what the science is saying when it says not separate biological systems. It means even if the activation is different, like for mother's pregnancy, for father's interaction, both mother and father are using the same core caregiving biology, including what? What it means by that? What the science is saying is when it says not separate biological systems, it is saying even if the activation is different, like for mothers, as I said, pregnancy, childbirth, and for fathers, interaction, like playing, touching, kissing. But both mothers and fathers are using the same core caregiving biology. What it means by the same caregiving biology? It includes, it is saying that both the system exists in both men and women. Hormonal systems like oxytocin, vasopressin, neuropeptide, and brain networks like emotional and social cognitive brain networks. So both mothers and fathers are using the same core caregiving biology, including oxytocin, neuropeptide, vasopressin, prolactin, and brain networks like emotional and social cognitive brain networks. So different trigger activates the system, but the underlying biological machinery is the same. Mother's system or caregiving system may be triggered more by pregnancy, childbirth, and for fathers more by interaction, but both are activating the same bonding hormones and brain systems. This is the key point. They are both activating the same or the shared bonding hormones in the brain system. So different starting routes, same destination. So they share the same caregiving system. When the science says this, it means both have the same core mechanisms for bonding and nurturing. Example, oxytocin and brain bonding circuits network. So same biological foundation for nurturing. So within that shared system, I already explained what within that shared system means. Differences can appear in how strongly it activates, when it develops, and what kinds of interaction triggers it. So what the science is saying when it says how strongly it activates, when it develops, and what kinds of interaction triggers it. So the caregiving system is shared, but parents can differ in how strongly it responds, when it develops, and what activates it. So the important thing you should underline is these are tendencies, not strict rules. They describe common patterns, not fixed outcome for every individual. So what it means by how strongly it activates. What is the science trying to say here? How strongly it activates means the degree. It means the intensity of the response. Some parents show higher oxytocin increases and stronger brain responses. Others show lower or more gradual responses. So this can vary based on level of caregiving involvement, experience, individual biology. So, for example, a highly involved father can show strong oxytocin response. So, a less involved parent, whether mother or father, they show weaker activation of oxytocin or weaker oxytocin response. So, the key point here is there is overlap, meaning you should not generalize by saying mother's strong or father's weak, but a range in both. What it means is when it says there is a range in both or there is overlap, it means a highly involved father can show strong oxytocin response and a less involved mother can show weaker oxytocin response. So you shouldn't generalize by saying, oh, mothers are always, or mothers show stronger oxytocin response always. You shouldn't generalize. So what it means when the science says when it develops. When it develops means the timing. It means when the caregiving system ramps up. Mothers often begin activation, this caregiving activation during pregnancy and shows a spike at childbirth. Fathers often show increase after birth. After the mothers give birth to the child, they show increase of oxytocin through interaction. It's strengthened by bonding or interaction over time. So the important thing is, what you should underline is, this is not a strict rule. Some fathers also show measurable biological changes during their partner's pregnancy. What it means by that, when the science says biological changes during their partner's pregnancy, fathers show increase in oxytocin experience or increase oxytocin, increase in prolactin, decrease in testosterone. So this has been found in multiple peer-reviewed studies by main authors like Liegletter and Ruth Feldman. So some mother bonding system develops more gradually after birth. That's why the science is saying this is not a strict rule, because some people think mothers develop early bonding, but you should not generalize, because some mothers bonding develops more gradually after birth. Some fathers also show measurable biological changes during their partner's pregnancy. So the key point here is the caregiving system is not absent from fathers. It's just different typical timeline. So what triggers it? What triggers this caregiving system in both men and women? What triggers it? When the science says what triggers it is the pathway. It's just saying the pathway is different. The entry point, different common entry points. Mothers, pregnancy hormones through pregnancy, childbirth and breastfeeding. Fathers, touch, play, e-contact, caregiving involvement. So there is overlap. You should not generalize. Mothers also rely on interaction like breastfeeding, touching, kissing the baby. Fathers respond to infant cues early on. So some fathers also respond to infant cues early on. So you should not generalize. So these are different starting pathways. They are just different starting pathways, not different systems. The systems are the same in both men and women. They both have the same caregiving hormones and brain networks, but different starting pathways. So the caregiving system is shared, but the activation can vary in degree, timing can differ, triggers can differ. So these are patterns, tendencies, not fixed rules. You should not generalize. So same system or shared system, different entry points and overlapping responses. So mothers and fathers may arrive through different biological pathways, but they share the same caregiving system with differences in timing, intensity, and triggers that vary by individual. So both converge into a shared caregiving and attachment system, both mothers and fathers. So both parents have oxytocin-based caregiving system, both mother and father, or both men and women have oxytocin-based caregiving system. Mothers often get an initial birth-related surge, but it does not stay permanently high. What it means is a woman gives birth or a mother gives birth and her oxytocin will surge up, and then it does not stay that way. The oxytocin declines again. So it does not stay permanently high. So after birth, her oxytocin will get high, and then from that high peak, it declines. Then oxytocin in mothers, like in fathers, after that, is sustained through ongoing interaction in caregiving. So different start, shared caregiving system. So after the initial activation of oxytocin and other bonding hormones and emotional and social cognitive brain networks, we will see it under. So after the initial activation, both parents primarily maintain oxytocin through similar interaction-based caregiving process. So different start, shared caregiving system. Think of it like this. It's like two people entering the same building through different doors. Once inside the building, they are engaging the shared underlying caregiving system. So the difference is in how the system is activated at the beginning, not how it works long term. After birth, both mothers and fathers rely on shared caregiving biology, like interaction, bonding, and caregiving. They rely on shared caregiving system and biology. When it says shared caregiving biology, it is indicating, the science is indicating the hormones and brain circuits. When it says shared caregiving system, it is indicating interaction, bonding, and caregiving to maintain oxytocin. So after birth, both mothers and fathers rely on shared caregiving systems like interaction, bonding, and caregiving to maintain oxytocin. So different start means the initial activation pathway is different. Shared caregiving system means that after birth, both parents maintain bonding through interaction. After birth, as I said earlier, her oxytocin rise up, and then it does not permanently stay at that high peak, it declines down. So after declining, both parents maintain bonding through interaction like touching, eye contacts, kissing, breastfeeding, another type of deep interactions. So, and caregiving. So, both have the biological capacity for nurturing. So, to examine this more carefully, let's look at evidences from multiple peer-reviewed studies. For clarity, I will summarize the methods briefly and focus on the main findings. So the first study is by main author Fieldman. The study was done in 2010 and 2011. The study title is Maternal and Paternal Plasma, Salivary and Urinary Oxytocin in Parent-Infant Synchrony. So what the researchers did is they measured oxytocin in both mothers and fathers and observed how they interacted with their babies. So oxytocin was linked to parent-infant interaction and synchrony. Their main point is oxytocin was linked to parent and infant interaction and synchrony. What is the researchers trying to say when they say synchrony? So when they say synchrony, what synchrony means? Synchrony means parent-infant synchrony means coordinated interaction between parent and baby over time. So the parent and baby are in tune with each other behaviorally and emotionally. So synchrony includes timing coordination. Timing coordination, under it includes parents responding at the right time, at the right moment, not too late or not too early. For example, if the baby vocalizes, then the parents respond quickly. And also if the baby looks, parents make eye contact. This is what timing coordination under synchrony. So there is also matching behavior, and this is also facial expression, tone of voice, movement rhythm. For example, if the baby smiles, the parent smiles back. If the baby is calm, the parents use soft tone. So this is what matching behavior under synchrony means. Back and forth interaction, reciprocity, like a conversation, even without words. So back and forth interaction under synchrony means it's like a conversation, even without words. Example, if the baby coos, then the parent responds, baby reacts again. So there is also emotional attunement. Parent adjusts to the baby emotional state. So emotional attunement under synchrony means parents adjust to the baby emotional state. Example, if the baby is distressed, then parents soothes. So this is what synchrony means. So if the baby also playful, parents engage in playful reaction. So in this study, they micro-coded interactions, frame by frame analysis. Then they compared that with oxytocin levels. So main finding, higher oxytocin is associated with synchrony in both mothers and fathers. Underline this, in both mothers and fathers. So synchrony is the moment-to-moment coordination of behavior, attention, and emotion between parent and infant. So why this is important? It's because both mothers and fathers display synchrony. Not only mothers, you should underline this. Oxytocin is linked to synchrony in both mothers and fathers. So it directly supports the claim, this study directly supports the claim that same caregiving system expressed through interaction. Remember, I already explained what same caregiving system or what shared caregiving system is. So it directly supports the claim that same caregiving system expressed through interaction. So synchrony is one of the key ways this shared caregiving system becomes visible in real infant behavior. So what this study shows, this study found that oxytocin in both mothers and fathers was linked to parent-infant interaction in synchrony. You should underline this. This study found that oxytocin in both mothers and fathers was linked, meaning in both men and women, and mothers and fathers. Mothers, women, fathers, men. So this study found oxytocin in both mothers and fathers was linked to parent-infant interaction in synchrony. So you should underline this, not only mothers. These findings show that oxytocin is related bonding process are active in both mothers and fathers. So the study findings show that oxytocin related bonding process are active in both mothers and fathers. And what you should underline here is Oxytocin is a nurturing hormone in both men and women. So I want to emphasize this because I already explained it to you. So many people think women are nurturers by nature and men are not, or men lack nurturing nature. But these studies show otherwise. So oxytocin related bonding process are active in both mothers and fathers, not only mothers. So a key takeaway from this study also is that parental oxytocin was tied to parent-infant synchrony in both parent-infant and synchrony in both. So this is what the Fieldman 2010 and 11 study shows. So the next study is main author Abraham in 2014. So the title is Father's Brain is Sensitive to Child Care Experiences. So what they did is they used brain scans, oxytocin measures, and parenting behavior data to compare different types of parents, including highly involved fathers. So father's brain responded strongly to infant cues, and primary caregiving fathers showed patterns that overlapped importantly with mothers. Underline this. I will explain to you what overlapping means. So especially when caregiving involvement was high. So brain scans show that when fathers are deeply involved in childcare, their brains show activation patterns that overlap with mothers. You should underline this. So overlapping means, underline this, overlapping means mothers and fathers use underline this, many of the same caregiving related brain areas. The same caregiving related brain areas. So the difference is on the activation part. What it means by mothers and fathers use many of the same caregiving related brain areas means there are networks in men and women in fathers and mothers brain, emotional and social cognitive brain areas. So overlapping means mothers and fathers use many of the same caregiving related brain areas. So fathers and mothers both activate emotion related areas responding to the baby and social bonding areas, attachment, interaction. So this study suggests fathers and mothers both activate emotional related areas and social bonding areas. Emotional related areas means responding to the baby, social bonding areas means attachment, interaction. So both show activation in caregiving related brain system. Both mothers and fathers activate these parts, these brain networks. But the difference is on the activation, how strongly it activates. So mothers and fathers activate overlapping emotional and social caregiving brain areas, but the strength and pattern of activation can differ. Underline this. The strength and pattern, how strongly those areas activate in men and woman mind, brain, in fathers and mothers brain. So it means difference in, it does not mean completely different brain areas. It means the same core caregiving network is involved in both mothers and fathers, but the strengths in connection within that network can differ. It means differences in how strongly those areas activate, how those areas are connected, and how activation relates to behavior. So what it means by how activation relates to behavior. So it does not mean they have completely different behaviors. It means their style or expression of caregiving can vary slightly. So in this research's context, activation relates to behavior. It means brain activity influences how caregiving expressed. Meaning both parents, for example, can show bonding, care, respond to the baby, but they may differ in, underline this, they may differ in how strongly they respond, how they express it, how they express the bonding, the caring, and the nurturing, how strongly they respond, how they express it. They may differ in these parts. The interaction style. So some parents may be more soothing, other parents may be more playful. Okay, for example, the mother may be more, she may lean to more soothing, and the father, he may lean to more playful. So soothing versus playful, these are different caregiving styles, not different ability. Underline this. So This suggests that mothers and fathers engage a shared underlying caregiving system, and that differences, such as more soothing or more playful interaction, reflect variation in caregiving style, not differences in underlying caregiving ability. You should underline this. Both fathers and mothers have the capacity to be more soothing or more to be playful. They have the capacity to be soothing and playful, but they may lean towards one. That means reflecting different expression of the same caregiving ability. So it does not mean different capacity. It does not mean one is nurturing. It means similar caregiving capacity, a slightly different behavioral expression. What it means by similar caregiving capacity? It means both parents have a comparable underlying ability to care for a child. Both can bond, respond to the baby, provides care. This capacity exists in both fathers and mothers, or in both men and women, not just one. But the difference is in style, how they express it, how they express these same core caregiving systems, how they express it. The intensity. They may differ in the intensity, the timing, the expression, and the style. I explained the style, like soothing and playful, more soothing and more playful. So similar caregiving capacity means both parents have a comparable biological ability to nurture and respond, even if they express it differently. This is what it means. So it means both parents care and respond, but the way that caregiving is expressed can vary slightly. So shared core caregiving system, similar caregiving capacity. I already explained what similar caregiving capacity means. Different activation. I already explained very well about different activation, and small differences in style, not ability. So what the study shows is this study provides evidence that caregiving related brain systems are experience sensitive, plastic, and not exclusive to mothers. So the other study is by Groomy, main author Groomy. The study was done in 2021. The title is A Systematic Review of Human Parental Oxytocin. So what they did is, this was a systematic review, meaning the authors examined and synthesized results from multiple human studies on parental oxytocin. So what the researchers found is that fathers' oxytocin levels appear to increase after childbirth and are associated with less hostility and better quality of parental physical interaction and play. So fathers' oxytocin is measurable, associated with caregiving related behavior. You should underline this. Fathers' oxytocin is measurable and associated with caregiving related behavior. So this is mainly by interaction. You should underline this. The research suggests after childbirth, oxytocin increases, but it is more strongly associated with interaction and caregiving than with simply witnessing the birth. So father's oxytocin tend to increase after childbirth and is linked to positive caregiving. So in other words, experience dependent. What is experience dependent? So what I said before is father's oxytocin increases and are linked to caregiving interaction. This study supports the idea that caregiving biology is experience dependent, not exclusive to mothers. What does it mean? Experience dependent does not mean non-biological. It means the system is biologically present and may be initially activated through different pathways. The system biologically present in both men and women, in both fathers and mothers, and may be initially activated through different pathways. The difference is in the pathway. So in mothers, oxytocin can rise sharply around childbirth, but that peak is temporary. We already discussed this. In mothers, oxytocin can rise sharply around childbirth, but that peak is temporary. It declines again. After that, in both parents, after declining, in both parents, the system is maintained through interaction, like bonding and caregiving. So two key implications from this study findings are Number one, not female only. Fathers also show oxytocin changes. So this challenges mother-only biology idea. Second, interaction-driven. Very important. Oxytocin linked to caregiving behavior, not just birth. It is interaction-driven. So supports the core idea of interaction maintain the system. So it supports the core idea interaction maintains the system, the nurturing system. So the point is not that childbirth doesn't matter. In mothers, oxytocin can rise sharply around childbirth, then decline from that peak. After that, in both parents, oxytocin-related caregiving systems are maintained through interaction with the infant. So the other study is by main author Gordon. The study title is Oxytocin in the Development of Parenting in Humans. So this is one of the strongest peer-reviewed studies out there. What they did is they followed new parents over time and measured oxytocin at 2 points after birth. You should underline this. Timing in the study, parents were measured at 1. Early postpartum, around the first weeks after birth, and again later in infancy, around 6 months. So 2 time points, early postpartum and about 6 months later. So what the study found is that in the first months after birth, both mothers and fathers' oxytocin showed increase or remained stable over time, with no significant difference between them, meaning their oxytocin levels were broadly similar. So the study found that paternal oxytocin levels increased or remained stable across the study period, with no significant difference between maternal and paternal oxytocin levels at measured time points. So this study followed new parents over time and found that mothers and fathers' oxytocin levels were similar across early parenthood and showed increases or stability over time, with no significant difference between them at each time point. This is a very strong peer-reviewed study. So this study supports the conclusion that oxytocin in early parenting is not uniquely maternal. Both parents showed increase or stable oxytocin levels across the first months, with no significant difference between them at the measured time points. The other study by main author Atzil, the study was done in 2012. The title is Synchrony and Specificity in the Maternal and Paternal Brain. So what they did is they studied how mothers and fathers' brain responded to their own babies and linked that to caregiving related hormones. So the main point of the study is the results suggested that mothers and fathers showed coordinated patterns of brain responses in social cortical networks involved in impact and mentalizing. Although some associations differed. We will come into this part. What part of association differs? So their brain responses overlap, meaning mothers and fathers activate many of the same caregiving related brain regions when interacting with their baby. So what brain response overlap means? It means mothers and fathers activate many of the same caregiving related brain regions when responding to their baby. This does not mean identical activation. The activation is different, but they are using the same caregiving related brain region. So this does not mean identical activation. It means shared regions, brain networks are involved, even if the strength and pattern of activation is different. So they use the same caregiving related brain regions, brain networks, but the activation is different. That is what it calls overlap. So overlapping caregiving brain networks. What overlap means is this suggests that both mothers and fathers activate many of the same caregiving related brain regions when responding to their infant. So those brain regions are emotional, limbic regions, attachment and concern, which means attachment and concern, social or cognitive, which means mentalizing, understanding the baby needs. So they use these brain networks, brain areas, and they engage overlapping regions within caregiving related brain networks, not completely separate systems. By what it means not completely separate systems is both men and women, or both the mother and the father, share these brain networks. They both have this emotional and social bonding, social cognitive brain networks, but the difference is on the activation part. So they engage overlapping parts of shared caregiving networks. What it means by that? What you should understand is the caregiving system is not one single area. The caregiving system is not one single area. It is a network. It is a combination of networks. It combines emotional and social cognitive areas. Emotional means limbic, love and attachment. It includes love and attachment. Cognitive means mentalizing. It includes understanding the baby. So both are part of a broader caregiving networks that are found in both men and women. So what do these findings indicate? From this research, mothers and fathers activate overlapping caregiving related brain regions. They also engage both emotional and social cognitive systems. But they may differ in what parts they differ? They may differ in which regions are more strongly engaged. How strongly different regions activate. How strongly they activate. There is also shared biological basis for caregiving. What it means by shared biological basis for caregiving. So these findings suggest a shared biological basis for caregiving. They are consistent with the capacity for both parents to engage in attachment, emotional responding, and caregiving behaviors. It does not mean identical behavior. It means neither parents lack the biological basis for nurturing. So, in short, the use of shared caregiving related brain systems suggests that both mothers and fathers have a biological basis for bonding, caregiving, and responding to their child. So there is also differences in activation patterns. What it means by differences in activation patterns? This suggests that mothers and fathers show overlapping caregiving related brain networks, but the pattern of that activation within those networks can differ. We already saw what overlapping means. Overlapping means both men and women use the same or the shared brain networks. So mothers and fathers show overlapping caregiving related brain networks, but the patterns of activation within those networks can differ. The difference is in those networks, how they activate, how strongly, is the timing also. So, meaning they engage many of the same brain regions, fathers and mothers engage many of the same brain regions, although not exactly in the same way, meaning the activation is different. This can include which regions are more strongly engaged, how strongly different regions are activated. Differences may partly reflect variation in caregiving roles, interaction patterns, and experience. In other words, these differences may relate to how parents interact with the baby and how much caregiving experience they have. For example, both parents may engage emotional and social cognitive systems, but one parent may show stronger emotional engagement while another shows stronger social cognitive engagement. So that means both still engage caregiving related systems. Both parents are engaging the same caregiving related systems. They both have the social, cognitive, and emotional areas in their brain, but one may more lean to emotional and one may more lean to social. So that means both still engaging caregiving related systems. The difference is in pattern and emphasis, not in whether one parent has the system and other does not. So in short, the findings suggest differences in activation patterns within overlapping caregiving related brain networks rather than completely different systems. So the other study is by Maynauter Fieldman. The study was done in 2012. The title is Oxytocin and Social Affiliation in Humans. So what they did is, this is a peer-reviewed review article in Hormones and Behavior, summarizing evidences across human attachment contexts, including parental bonding. So the main point of this study is the review suggests that the extended oxytocin system provides a neurohormonal substrate for parental, romantic, and social affiliative attachment in humans. So it finds that oxytocin is associated with human bonding attachment. This includes parent and child bonding, romantic relationships, and social connections. So the study describes oxytocin as part of a broader human affiliation system. So what the study shows, this review suggests that oxytocin is part of a broader human affiliation system, supporting bonding across multiple social relationships rather than being limited to maternal or parenting contexts alone. So this study supports the idea of oxytocin is not limited to maternal or only for parenting. It is a human affiliation system. The other study is by Menauter Glitter. The study was done in 2011. The title is Longitudinal Evidence that Fatherhood Decreases Testosterone in Human Males. So what they did is they followed men over time and found hormonal changes when they became fathers. So it's a longitudinal study, same people tracked over time. What they were testing, they wanted to see, does becoming a father change male biology? So what they found is men who became fathers showed significant decreases in testosterone. The biggest drops were seen in men who were more involved in childcare. So what that means is, this is very important, lower testosterone has been, even in prior researches, associated with reduced mating effort, increased caregiving related behavior. So the findings suggest that male biology shifts towards caregiving when men became fathers. So in this study, they showed that men hormones change when they became fathers, especially with caregiving involvement, suggesting male biology adapts in ways consistent with caregiving. It adapts, the male biology adapts for caregiving. So the study found that men's hormones changed with fatherhood and caregiving involvement. So these findings support the conclusion that male biology also changes in ways consistent with caregiving. So the other study is by Wiseman, Menauter Wiseman. The study was done in 2012. So the title is Oxytocin Administration to Parents Enhances Infants' Physiological and Behavioral Readiness for Social Engagement. So what they did is researchers recruited fathers of young infants. Fathers were given oxytocin nasal spray or a placebo. Then they were observed interacting with their babies. So this is an experimental study. They tested cause and effect. So what they found is fathers who received oxytocin showed more touch, more social engagement, and responsiveness. So oxytocin increased some caregiving related behaviors in fathers. So what that means is these findings suggest that fathers have a biological system capable of supporting caregiving related when activated. These findings do not suggest an entirely artificial response. They are consistent with an existing caregiving related biological capacity. So it suggests that an existing caregiving related system is present and can be activated. So in this study, they showed that oxytocin administration in fathers increased caregiving related behavior, such as touch, engagement, and responsiveness, supporting the idea that men have a biological capacity for caregiving. So when oxytocin is activated in fathers, caregiving related behavior increases, suggesting that an existing caregiving related system is already present in males or in fathers. The other study is by Kim, Menauter Kim. The study was done in 2010. The title is The Plasticity of Human Maternal Brain, Longitudinal Changes in Brain Anatomy During the Early Postpartum Period. This is a very important research. What the researchers did, they recruited new mothers after giving birth, used brain imaging MRI scans, scanned them at multiple time points after birth, not just once. So this is a longitudinal brain study. What they were testing, does the brain change after becoming a parent? What they found, mothers showed increases in brain areas related to emotion, motivation, caregiving. These changes happened over time after birth, meaning the brain was adapting, not fixed. So the findings suggest that caregiving related brain system can change and develop through experience after birth, not just pregnancy or childbirth alone. So what they found is that brain regions associated with caregiving after birth and continue to develop with experience, suggesting that nurturing biology is not entirely fixed. So this study supports, not only women are naturally nurturing from birth, so caregiving related biology changes and adapts through experience. So the brain is a plastic, it learns and it adapts. So this study findings support the idea that caregiving related biology is shaped by experience rather than being entirely fixed at birth. So another study by main author Rilling and Young, the study was done in 2014. The title is The Neural and Hormonal Basis of Human Parental Care. So what they did is they reviewed many studies on fathers' hormones, brain activity, and caregiving behavior. So this is a review paper, summary of scientific evidences. So what they were analyzing is what is the biological basis of fathers' caregiving? What is the biological base for father nurturing or caregiving? What they found across multiple studies, fathers show oxytocin, meaning bonding and attachment, vasopressin, caregiving motivation. Vasopressin is related to caregiving motivation, uh, brain activation in caregiving related areas. So these are biological systems linked to caregiving. So the key thing here is this evidence suggests that father's caregiving has a biological component alongside social and experimental influences. The evidence is consistent with father caregiving being biologically grounded and shaped by experience. So the reviewed evidence that fathers have hormonal and neural system associated with caregiving. So they reviewed evidences and that fathers have hormonal and neural system associated with caregiving. So this study is powerful because it is a synthesis of many studies, many scientific studies, not a single study. So it suggests that father's caregiving has a biological component involving oxytocin, vasopressin, and caregiving-related brain activity. To keep the discussion accurate, let's clarify a few common misunderstandings. So a common misunderstanding is that because mothers get oxytocin during childbirth, they must be more nurturing. But childbirth oxytocin helps with labor, lactation, and early bonding. It does not settle who is more nurturing overall. Long-term nurturing is shaped by caregiving behavior, attachment, interaction, and experience. Fathers also show oxytocin changes in caregiving-related brain responses. So another common misunderstanding is if father's oxytocin rises through interaction, that makes it less natural or proves that mothers are naturally more nurturing. In reality, it only shows that mothers and fathers may enter the caregiving system or the nurturing system through different routes. It does not show that fathers lack nurturing biology. So both mothers and fathers have natural oxytocin systems. They are just activated in a different ways. So let me break it down. Interaction is also biological, not artificial. Saying father's oxytocin comes from interaction doesn't make it less natural, because interaction is exactly how human bonding is biologically designed to work. So, like touching, eye contact, voice, all biological triggers. These are evolutionary mechanisms. So, the other thing is mothers also rely on interaction. Even in mothers, oxytocin doesn't stay high automatically. What it means is, after a woman gives birth, her oxytocin rises up sharply, and then it does not stay permanently high. It declines again. After it declines, she sustains it through interaction. It increases with breastfeeding, deep interaction, touch, and interaction with the baby. So it's not automatic forever. Meaning, after a woman gives birth, some people think her oxytocin rises and it stays that way forever. No, it's not automatic forever. So it still depends on interaction. The other thing is about birth oxytocin is temporal. Nurturing is long term. So childbirth oxytocin is short term. Nurturing is long term. So because biologically oxytocin spikes during childbirth are event-based. Childbirth oxytocin is event-based. They rise during labor and then return from that peak. So long-term nurturing isn't maintained by a one-time surge, oxytocin surge. It is maintained by repeated interaction like touching, eye contact, and caregiving interaction. That is why both mothers and fathers show oxytocin increases during parenting, not just birth. So childbirth oxytocin is tied to a specific event. It is released to trigger uterine contraction, support milk letdown. These are time-limited physiological processes. So by definition, it's not permanent state. Hormones don't stay elevated permanently. In physiology, hormones spike up, then return to baseline. Chronic high oxytocin would actually disrupt normal regulation. So this is it. Parenting requires repeated activation. Oxytocin rises again with touch, eye contact, and caregiving interaction. That means nurturing is maintained, not automatically sustained. So if childbirth oxytocin were permanent, mothers wouldn't need interaction to maintain bonding. But research shows oxytocin rises again with touching and caregiving interaction. That means it's not a permanent state. It is a system that is continuously activated. So birth triggers oxytocin. It does not sustain it. Sustaining it requires interaction. That is why both parents show oxytocin in caregiving. So what you should think is, after a woman gives birth, her oxytocin rises up sharply and then it declines. It does not stay permanently. After it declines, she activates it and sustains it through interaction. So birth triggers a strong oxytocin increase, but long-term caregiving depends on repeated interaction. So if fathers' caregiving were not biologically supported, we will not expect to see consistent hormonal and neural patterns associated with it. So some people say father's oxytocin comes from interaction, so it's not natural. We already addressed this, but interaction is exactly how human bonding is biologically designed. Even mothers rely on touching, breastfeeding, and connection to maintain oxytocin. So, in childbirth, oxytocin is temporary, parenting lasts years. So, studies show both mothers and fathers have oxytocin linked to bonding and similar caregiving brain responses. So, different pathway doesn't mean less natural. It means the same system activated differently, or the shared system activated differently. So different activation pathway doesn't mean less natural. They reflect a shared biological caregiving system expressed in different ways. So across psychology, anthropology, and neuroscience, the evidence points to the same conclusion. Mothers and fathers share the capacity to nurture. Taken together, the work of Michael Lamb, scholars, Parkey, Hardy, and Fieldman supports the view that nurturing is not a female trait, but a human capacity. So while some biological differences exist, the evidence suggests that nurturing is not exclusive to women. It is also biologically present and supported in men.